Looking back at last game, I think obviously we've really talked a lot about if you defend, um, you know, every single possession, you're going to be in every game. I think we've for the most part done that, and just found a way to win. Weren't pretty certainly from an offensive standpoint, um, but we got to the foul line, did a lot of good things, and now we've got to regroup. We got another tough opponent in Georgia Southern, who I've got a lot of respect for. They've got good talent. They play hard, um, and so we've got to be ready.
These last two games are kind of games that you weren't winning last year.
It's a different team than last year. We didn't win a lot of games last year, so I don't know. I mean, I think I'll keep saying it because I'm so nice to you guys, but um, I think Amir and Reggie made the winning plays versus Vanderbilt. They weren't on the team last year. Now I think Nate made a big shot, so maybe he showed some growth versus NJIT. But I just think it's a different team than last year.
With Akeem, when he came here, obviously he had in his mind what role he would have. He said earlier this season maybe he was shooting the ball a little bit more than he had at Milwaukee, shooting threes. Where do you feel like his growth has been as far as him? What exactly can you do to help this team?
Well, I think again, I had always said from day one he didn't get here until September, so it was going to take him some time. It was going to take him some time to gel, and he's starting to do that. So I mean, other guys had the benefit of being here all summer. Reggie, although didn't practice much because of surgery, but he was here. So he wasn't, and like even Michael, Eric, and Amir were able to watch a little bit from afar. So I knew it would take him a little bit of time, and he's brought a lot of value. He was really good last game.
What has he progressed the most from when he arrived till now?
Just take everything, an understanding of where he needs to be offensively, defensively, different terminology, than the old place he was at Milwaukee. So it's not that, it's just time sometimes has to happen with that. But, he was really good last game.
You talked earlier this week about Ken Palm and sort of advanced statistics. When did you first start to look at that stuff and appreciate it?
I don't know, a couple of years ago, whenever that kind of came into play there. What I like about it, it's long season, and you got a million practices, games, pre-game speeches, post-game speeches. You have to find a bunch of different ways to connect and communicate with your guys, and I just think it illustrates points, and so you go with whatever that may be at the certain time. So I always think it's been pretty beneficial, and we talk about it a lot.
So do you go as far as saying to them, we are X rank in offensive efficiency?
Yeah.
We need to pick that up.
Yeah. Or very good in defensive efficiency.
Right.
Keep it going.
What are some of the ones, those two, you mentioned deflections last week. Are there other ones that you look at, or are those kind of...
From a statistics standpoint, field goal percentage, defense, pretty important. I think obviously from a rebounding standpoint, what the percentage of offensive rebounds that you get of your misses, that's really poor for us, not very good. Free throw percentage obviously is important. And then from our own statistics, we talk a lot about paint touches. We talk a lot about challenge shots, with shots with a hand in the face. We talk a lot about blow-bys from a defensive standpoint, missed screens, things like that, those type of statistics.
And are those ones that you have to keep or an assistant has to keep?
I don't do it during the game, no. That would be very challenging.
I mean, but you keep them for the...
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, so obviously field goal defense, like the offensive rebounding percentages you can get off of Ken Palm. We do,
Like blow-bys.
yeah, we do that throughout the course of the game. And then, you try to get, at halftime, you try to get a bit of a gauge of challenge shots, deflections, blow-bys, paint touches. You're normally not going to be 100% accurate. And then we rewatch it and we chart it. And then we kind of have a printout of everything. Offensively, what plays may work. And then we kind of have a running tally of all that.
Not to get much more into this, but with offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency, do you have goals like defense, we want to be in the top 30 on Ken Palm, and offense, we want to be top 50 or anything like that?
We'll be number one in everything. I think that I just think again it's we illustrate a lot, and I do it almost every year. Like you show the good teams, and most of the time they better be top 25 in defensive efficiency. You look at like rankings to me. The ESPN and the AP, like those are so irrelevant. That's for fans, and yeah, I know it's surprising. Sorry, AP, but they just don't really mean a whole lot. And I mean, they're good to get people interested. They just don't have any carryover to anything at the end of the year. But when you look at the good teams, they're normally really good in OER and DER. So I guess that's kind of it.
Who or what do you think is the biggest catalyst in the improved all-around defense?
It's a collection of things. I think our personnel were longer. I always thought last year we did not have great length. We didn't have great shot blocking. We had to play three guards a lot. So there were times we were playing Dupree at the three. He's 6'2", 6'3". Amir's playing a lot at the three, 6'7". Murph's got good length at the 4 spot. Eric's got good length. Reggie's got good length. Bakari now has got some good length. So I just think it's a matchup and lineup standpoint.
How much has Reggie sort of not changed, but maybe reinforced your defensive identity?
I don't think he's that great of a defender, to be quite honest with you. And bring it up to him when he comes up here. Is he doing media? Yeah, please say it to him. I think he's a very good shot blocker. Yeah, Coach said that he doesn't think you're a very good defender. No, I think he blocks shots, which is obviously extremely important. I think he can better at some other things, but he saves you. Again, I've kind of talked about it before. Sometimes I think shot blocking is not the most fundamentally sound defense because sometimes you're late, rotating, but you've got to adjust to a shot blocker in a Reggie. Now, Reggie has saved us a bunch. He's had some shot blocks at the end of games that have been just as crucial as baskets. So I don't think he's necessarily reinforcing anything, but I think he's got confidence that he can do it, and I think he's very good at it.
Is he somebody that is conscious of, sometimes you see guys that just go up and swat the ball over the place. That's not always a good thing. He seems to keep balls in play and turn the possession.
Yeah, he's got like a soft block, if that makes any sense. He's got kind of a touch to him that's pretty good. And I do think he can block some shots on the ball when he's guarding the ball. So I think that is a natural, where you can kind of keep it in play. If you're rotating a shot, to block a shot, it's more aggressive, where he's pretty good at that. Because I do think the majority of the times when he's rotating, he blocks it out of bounds. But he's just got a good soft touch. You see it on offense. It's pretty good, too.
What would you like to see from him to be a good defender?
I don't think he's a bad defender. I don't think I just think he could get better like everybody. I think, from a pick and roll defense standpoint, probably slide his feet a little bit better. Stay in his stance, stay engaged, that stuff, but we just haven't been able to work with him that much. It's not a lack of effort. It's just continue to harp on the little things, and he's willing to do it. He wants to win and wants to be a great player.
Do you hear guys talking more on defense this year?
No, not really. They need to get better at that. No, not yet. I think we need to improve on that, to be honest.
I don't know if it was for show or not, but Akeem said on Tuesday night that Wednesday's practice was going to be big to see if guys were hungry and coming back the right way. How was practice?
It was good. Yeah, I don't think that was for show. I think that's pretty accurate. I think that, we had a wake-up call, versus an NJIT. Us as coaches certainly know that anyone can beat anybody, and we respect every single opponent that walks in here. When you follow the game as much as coaches do, and you know all these people in the business, and you sit there and look at a score and you get surprised, it can happen to anybody. So I think it woke us up a little bit. I think we got to understand that, I told them, you sleptwalk a little bit through NJIT. Because it may not have had the big name that a Vanderbilt, Florida State had. Well, what are we going to do the next 3 weeks? Because, we got Georgia Southern, we got Northern Illinois, we got Arkansas State, all extremely capable of beating anybody. We've got to understand that if we don't prepare the right way versus any of these opponents, they could beat us. So I think it was a good wake-up call. I think the guys were really locked in yesterday. I thought it was a very good practice.
How do you feel about the team's leadership with the three captains? I know at times in some of these games, especially like maybe the NJIT team, I can't say that. Springs in particular got some of the guys together, started talking to them a little bit, trying to get them more engaged in the game.
Yeah, he scored 19 points, right? I mean, that's normally how it works with young guys. And I think the biggest thing I talk to our guys about from a leadership standpoint, I think it's our job to teach guys how to lead. I don't know if it's in everybody's DNA. And, we all do it. We all get better at it. We work at it as much as we possibly can. But that's something I kind of talk to our guys about. If we continue to play defense the way I hope we're going to play, does that fuel you just as much as the ball going in the basket? Like guys kind of were moping around a little bit after last game, and I said to them, I said, is that because we scored 74 and we scored 56 the game before? Sometimes you got to embrace what your team's pretty good at, and bring leadership regardless if the ball goes in, regardless of what's going on. So that's something we're talking to guys about, because Murph's a captain. He's only a sophomore, so he'll learn. Nate is obviously a junior. And then, Akeem, I think he's got really good leadership qualities.
You brought up Jordan when he's not playing as well. Sometimes you talked about last year, too, like the body language might not be that great with him. Is that something that you'd like to see?
Yeah, I told him, I said, I got a call from my father after the game. He said, you were really, really poised, talking about me. And he said, that you need that. And I told the team, I said, I may have appeared poised. I was a nervous wreck. Murph, your body language, the camera caught you. And, you want to win, but that body language can scream at times, And so talking about that a little bit, because every game moving forward, I don't even know if tomorrow's on TV, but is it? Okay, I think every game moving forward's on some type of TV. So, just making sure your body language is great, and he wants to win. It's just, so yeah, it was a good, there were some good clips of that to show him to learn from.
Did your dad share any other thoughts about the team?
No.
Richard, where are you at this juncture compared to where you want to be for the start of the Big Ten season?
Got it. Yeah, we got to get better. Skill-wise, I think we've got to improve. Free throw shooting's got to improve. Rebounding's got to improve. It's not great. I look at our defensive numbers and I say, okay, they're pretty good. Imagine if we didn't give up offensive rebounds, how good they could really be. But I just think we've got to use this month. This is a tough month for everybody because of finals. Because when you've got 4 games in a row of names that are not these big names that everybody gets fired up for, getting your guys to understand again, to respect those opponents. But I just think the overall skill of everybody is something we'll really, really lock in on as much as we can. It's tough when you got a lot of games. So, but we're going to harp on that to where, because in this conference, you've got to be playing your best basketball, in January, February. So we're not near where we need to be at all.
You've had this terrific start, 8-1. You sense yourself a renewed interest in the program, where you are publicly around the street and all that stuff. People seem to be wondering if the club is back where you are.
I really, really try not to worry about that. And maybe last year taught me that because it was so difficult that if I worried about it, I would be miserable. And I was pretty miserable last year anyway. It wasn't like I was happy. But I just try, I think that taught me just try to, like heck, to lock in on, day by day. And because everybody wants to talk about fans and this and that. And to me, it's just if you take care of that stuff, everything else take care of itself. So I don't really know. I've really tried not to worry about it. just because I think it wastes a lot of energy. When I worked at Florida under Billy Donovan, it's a bit of a football school, obviously, and there wasn't a lot of great interest, and they just won back-to-back titles, and he never, ever concerned himself with it. And I always admired that about him, so I try really hard to do that. So I hope that's the case, but I don't really know, to be honest with you. All right, thank you.